Hey there, Fletcher from All Things Overlanding here, and today I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different than I normally talk about, but I feel like a lot of you guys and gals that follow me or listen to the podcast and things like that, whether you want to start a YouTube channel or start a podcast or do all the work that it takes to do that, or if you just want to capture your own adventures, a lot of folks send me a lot of questions about, hey, how do you shoot your videos? How do you edit your videos? What software do you use? What cameras do you use? But so again, I'm going to walk you kind of through that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some tips and tricks. I'm going to put links in the description down below to all the gear that I use, all the things that I mentioned in this video. So if you want to learn more about recording your trips, stay tuned.
Understand where it came from, but you got it, my got it. It began in the land of the sandstorm. I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you give to me. Loosening my grip.
All right, guys, so as I mentioned in the intro today, I am talking about just some general tips and tricks for gear that can help you shoot your trips, photography or videography wise, a little bit better. I'm going to tell you kind of what I use. I'm going to literally walk you through all my gear that I use and show you what I've got. And again, you don't have to spend, at this point, I've been doing this for like 5 years. So I've spent a decent amount of money now between a drone, and I've got an Osmo Pocket 3, and I've got a nice backpack because I have a ton of gear that I carry with me. But I still mostly shoot with my phone. I'm shooting on my iPhone 14 Pro right now. And so I'm gonna kind of walk you through all the gear. I'm gonna talk a little bit about some tips and tricks for just kind of the things that I've learned from YouTube and kind of where to go to find some more about that, things to search for on YouTube. A lot of it is self-taught. And by a lot of it, I mean all of it. I literally just consumed content on YouTube to the point where I taught myself some basics, how to edit, how to shoot video, the rule of thirds, magic hour, all that good stuff. Google those terms or YouTube those terms and you'll see what I'm talking about. But again, I'm going to walk you through my gear. I'm going to walk you through some tips and tricks for how to shoot. I'm going to walk you through the software that I use for editing. I'm not going to go super deep on that because we could spend hours on that. But I'm just going to kind of tell you what I use because I get that question a lot and why I use it and some alternatives to what I use that are free as well. So that if you're just getting started and you don't want to go super deep and spend a bunch of money, you can get started and learn some stuff that will be applicable later on if you want to grow into it. So let's dive into kind of my gear. What do I use? What do I shoot with? So again, as I mentioned, primary device has always been my iPhone. Part of me that keeps me from getting a DSLR is, I have an iPhone 14 Pro right now. I'm literally getting ready to switch to the 16 Pro. The 16 Pro has some really cool audio features built into it, like focused audio where you can actually like block out the background and sort of active noise cancel background noise and bring in your voice. It has some really cool audio stuff. It has some better processing power. It has better cameras and stuff built into it. All my stuff, if you look at my Instagram, which is linked in the description down below, all those pictures are on an iPhone. Every single one of them. That's all I've ever shot with. And if you go back through the years, you can literally see them increasing in quality. Now, could you buy like a Sony A7 or whatever, I don't know cameras, but all these DSLRs that I know all my friends use that shoot content, you could buy those. You could teach yourself to learn a DSLR, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do that, do it. Sometimes I go back and forth, and I'm getting closer and closer every year to like, should I just bite the bullet and buy a DSLR? But my problem is, then once you buy that, I'm 5 years in, right? So the camera that I would have bought 5 years ago is probably completely blown out of the water nowadays by like a new iPhone, right? So that's kind of where I'm at, is I'm like, I'm already getting a phone. I have to have a phone anyways. And since I get a new phone every couple of years, why not increase my technology and make it dual purpose? Kind of like with our overlanding gear, right? Like you never really want to have a piece of gear that only does one thing. You want a piece of gear that does multiple things because then it's more efficient, right? That's kind of how I look at it with the phone. These phones nowadays are super crazy. A lot of the Samsung phones and stuff like that are way better even photography-wise and video-wise than the iPhones. I'm just stuck in the Apple infrastructure and I love it. But again, nothing against Android phones and things like that. A lot of them take really amazing night shots. I've had buddies shoot pictures of the moon and it feels like they're literally in a spaceship flying past the moon and I'm getting a black blurry thing with like a white dot in the middle with my iPhone. Sorry, iPhone guys and girls, if you disagree with me, post up in the comments down below, but our iPhones are fairly limited in some ways. But then like this cinematic mode that you're looking at right now is completely artificial, right? Like that blur is done by computer. So like when I do like a little circle like this, if you're watching, you see how it's like changing, it gets blurry and then it becomes not blurry again. It's because it doesn't know what to do. It thinks that this might be like my glasses or something, right? Like it's all fake. The blur is all a fake. See how that gets real clear and then it gets blurry again? It's making up for it. In between my fingers, you'll probably see it if you're watching. If you're listening on the podcast, of course, you can't see this, but like what I'm doing is I'm holding up my hand in like a circle and it tricks the phone's blur basically to where it unblurs because it thinks that it's like my glasses or an eyeball or something. So there are some limitations, but like, again, this looks really good, right? Like it's blurring my background. You can see my old logo back there, but then it goes blurry. So like, it's cool, right? It's the technology, and the technology keeps getting better. So like with my iPhone 16, I anticipate it being even better than this 14 is. And so that's kind of where my head goes with it. Now again, DSLRs are awesome. You can learn a ton. The pictures that these guys and girls shoot with their DSLRs blow mine out of the water, but I think I can be competitive. If I was a little bit better skill-wise, I could keep up a lot more with these fancy folks with their DSLRs. There are a number of mics that you can get for it. A lot of them are good, a lot of them are crap. Probably my favorite mic that I've ever had, I don't have anymore because I actually had it in a pants pocket and it got washed, was a Shure MV88. I don't think they make that anymore, but I'll put a link to the comparable Shure microphone down below. But SHURE, Shure is a great brand of microphones. They make stuff for podcast studios, they make stuff for phones and stuff. So if you have a DSLR, you can get a Shure microphone for that too. But man, that was my favorite mic. I used it for all my videos for probably the last 2 or 3 years. And the audio sounds great. And audio is super, super important. So just sort of a tip here, as we're moving past the iPhone, talking a little bit about audio. Audio is huge. It feels disconnected if you're watching a video and the audio is bad or you don't have audio. Think about this. If you have a drone and you fly a drone, the drone is making a ton of buzzing noise, right? There is no audio from drone footage. You can't get it. Good YouTubers, good people that are making videos will add in sound design, right? They will basically like capture it with their phone or something down here on the ground. They'll capture the birds tweeting and the bugs and the sound of the tires on the gravel and stuff like that. And then they'll layer that audio in on top of their drone footage to make it seem more organic and to bring you into that story, right? And again, I'm not going to go super deep on all these tips for like how to shoot YouTube videos because there's just so much, but just be really mindful of that, right? Like if you're shooting with your iPhone, it by itself does not capture great audio, especially when there's a lot of surrounding noise, which is why I'm so excited about the 16 because it has a way to sort of block that out and really focus the audio, which I really love because I'm lazy and I don't want to mess with all this extra gear. But think about your audio when you're shooting video. Think about your shot composition, right? Like where are you going to put your camera? A lot of times people will just stand at eye level, standing up, and they will shoot a picture of their truck. You'll notice with a lot of my pictures, it's like really low to the ground and I'm like looking up at the truck. It makes it look more epic. It makes it look more aggressive, right? To be low or high. Sometimes I'll go really high and I'll stand on something and I'll shoot down with my phone from sort of the top. Or sometimes I'll throw a drone up and I'll just take pictures with it. I'll take pictures from up above the truck down at the sky, or I'll fly it far away and take a picture of my truck on a cliff edge or something, you know? So just think about it and try and be creative. Whatever you can think of, you can pretty much shoot with a combination of like, even like a cheap DJI Mini, right? Like even like the DJI Mini 3 or 4, those are previous gen models now. They're a couple hundred, you know, $400 or $500. They're really, really cheap drones, but they get amazing pictures. They get amazing video. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars getting the newest, coolest drone. So again, shot composition, audio is really important. These are just sort of my general tips. I shoot primarily on my phone. I'm going to show you kind of my bag here. This is my bag. Again, if you're on the podcast, I will describe this to you. It's just a black Peak Designs 45-liter backpack, but the way that it's designed is really cool. And I'll put a card up here to a video that I did on this bag so you can kind of see it in more detail if you want to. And if you're on the podcast, you could click and go watch that on YouTube. But it opens from the back, so I have access to all my gear from the back. So I'm going to open it up and I'm going to just kind of, again, walk you through the gear that I've got. Then my drone is a DJI Mavic 2S Pro. Again, I'm going to link to this in the description down below. I got the Fly More pack, so I've got 3 batteries. I've got a charging stand for it. It comes with a nice bag. This has been a great drone. New when I bought this, it was about $1,300. I'm not sure what it is now, but I'll link to it down below. I have to imagine it's cheaper now. But this thing is great. I'm also looking at that DJI Neo, which is like a $300 drone with the Fly More package and extra batteries that you don't even really need a controller for. It will follow you. It's really smart. It even has a way with the phone to block out noise and capture your audio from your phone and layer it into the video from the drone. And that thing's like $300. Again, DJI Minis are really cheap now. I think we're on the 5 is the current one, but if you go back to a 4 or a 3, the sensors in them are still pretty good and they're way less expensive. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy this. This is my second drone. I started with a DJI Mini, the very first one. I started with that as my drone and it was awesome. And then I was like, you know what, I want to invest in a nicer one if I'm going to keep doing this. And so I've had this for the last couple of years and I've crashed it a couple of times and all kinds of stuff. It holds up great. It's really easy to fly. It shoots magnificent pictures and videos, and I should use it more. Really, I really should. But that is a great drone. And again, I'll put a link to that and the Neo and all these that I'm talking about in the description down below. Now, other things that you want to think about is, how are you going to mount it, right? Again, you can be as creative as you want, but you're going to be limited in your ways to mounting stuff to your vehicle. I have over the years kind of figured out that like these Sea-Sucker style or Sea-Sucker, I mean, this is a legitimate Sea-Sucker, but there are some knockoff ones that are a little bit cheaper. These mounts are great. See, because it's got a quarter 20 on it that you could just mount pretty much any camera to, and then you can stick this to the side of your vehicle, suction it up until it's definitely stuck on there really good, and then you can get cool shots from like your rear quarter panel. Again, just trying to be a little bit different, a little bit unique with it, not just shooting it from your driver's seat out the windshield, right? Another thing that's important is lighting, and so I've got a couple of different options. I've got this little Ulanzi light cube that is just really small. It recharges off of micro USB. It's just all inclusive. It has a built-in battery. And then I've got this small rig light. So if the light goes down, it's getting a little bit darker. Again, my iPhone struggles with dark stuff a little bit. I've got a couple of lighting options that are rechargeable. I just charge them up and then I can throw them out to use it to light up a scene. If it's me, you know, sitting here making a podcast or something and it's getting a little bit darker, a campfire chat or something like that, you want some lighting, because if it's too dark, people won't be able to see it. They're not going to be interested and they're going to bounce off if you're trying to make a YouTube video. Same with if you're trying to make something to show your friends and family. If you can't see anything and the footage is bad, it's just not that interesting. Another thing that I love is I have this little Ulanzi magnetic phone holder. And basically what it is on the back here, it's magnetic. So like with our new phones, you can just slap your phone onto it, but then it makes it more like you're holding a camera. So it kind of has like a camera grip on it. And then you put your phone on it, and then it also has a Bluetooth button on the top that you can sync with your phone. So you can actually snap pictures using this button with your phone, and it's rechargeable. So again, this charges off USB-C. It's also got a shoe mount on the top, so like if I wanted to put that light that I was just showing you on here, I could have the light on here while I'm shooting with my phone. So, you know, little tools like this thing's like 20 bucks, right? So again, I'm not spending $1 million here, but I'm just trying to find ways to make it a little bit easier to shoot, a little bit smoother and more composed when I'm shooting video and stuff. Here, this little tiny box here is my microphones for my iPhone. These are made for an iPhone. But there's two little mics. These are the things, if you're on TikTok, you've probably seen them, but it plugs in, the one thing plugs into the bottom, and then you've got two lavalier mics that you can attach to your shirt. So if you're interviewing someone, you could be using one and the other person could be using the other one. Gives you a good way to interview people. I like having two too, because if one dies, then I can start charging that one and I can switch to the other one, and I've got double the capacity basically for battery life. I'll put links in the description down below to mounts and stuff. There's a million different mounts. I like the Ulanzi stuff, the newer stuff, NEEWER stuff, all that stuff, some pretty budget minded but pretty good quality camera gear and camera mounting stuff. There's different adjustable articulating arms with, you know, grip mounts that will grab onto like your headrest in your truck, or will grab onto like a roof rack bar or something, so you can again get interesting shots, put it in different places on your vehicle. But then kind of my new killer piece, and this thing was pricey, is I got a DJI Osmo Pocket 3. This thing with the Create More pack or whatever, it comes with a microphone, it comes with the Osmo Pocket itself, it comes with an extended handle that gives you a little bit more grip on it, and it's also a built-in battery, so it extends your battery life for it. It comes with a case, it comes with a tripod, and that sort of stuff. Was about high $600, $700. That's probably the most, aside from the drone, that's the most I've ever spent on any sort of camera gear. But it's awesome. Part of the reason I got it is that it shoots really good low light stuff, and again, my iPhone struggles with that, so one, it separates me from my phone, which I have problems with space sometimes, and I have problems with battery, right? If I'm shooting a bunch of videos all at once or shooting a really long trip video and we're kind of on the road a lot and I'm shooting a lot of footage, I've had problems keeping it charged because it's my phone, it's usually running GPS, maybe music and stuff. So I'm just draining the battery, and then I may have to take like an hour break or something, and I might miss something because I'm waiting for my phone to recharge so that I can use it. Another thing is, if you've dealt with this, if you have a vehicle that has wireless CarPlay, the iPhone won't let you shoot video when you're connected to the CarPlay, because it's like, hey, you're putting out a signal. You can't also capture another signal and audio from that, right? So when I'm connected to CarPlay, I literally have to go into my menu in my truck and disconnect the CarPlay to be able to shoot video. And by the time I've done that, I've usually missed the thing I was trying to capture. So again, having the Osmo Pocket 3 as a dedicated vlogging camera and shooting camera, the fact that it's gimbaled and it's stable is awesome and allows me a lot of flexibility in the ways that I can shoot things. With that extended handle, it has a 1/4 on the bottom of it, which is just a screw mount basically. So again, I can mount it via that suction cup to the side of the truck. I can mount it to a tripod. I can mount it to a number of different things. I'll put links to a couple tripods that I've got below. I've got one that's a little more expensive and fancy, and then I've got one that's like the $20 TikTok shop one. And I actually use that one more because it's so small and so simple and easy to set up. So again, start with the cheaper ones, see if you like it or not. If you hate it, then you can step up to the bigger, more expensive ones. But there's just a ton of ways to do this, right? All right, so that was kind of the gear that I use, as well as some just general audio, video tips and things like that. So let's kind of finish up here with talking about the software that I use. So I use Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro is a Mac-only software. I love it because it's really, really easy to use once you kind of learn a few tricks with it. It's also very similar to iMovie. Now, Final Cut Pro for a lifetime license was about $400, I think. So I did spend $400 on it, but I've been using it for 5 years. I get all the updates. Everything comes for free. Once you bought the license, you own it for your life. So even as I switch computers, it does not care. It knows who I am and it knows that it's my license and it transfers, which is awesome. So I use Final Cut Pro. If you don't want to go out and spend $400 on software for editing like that, start with iMovie. That's what I started with. iMovie works exactly the same as Final Cut. The biggest difference is you can't add plugins and things like that to iMovie. So you only have the default functionality that is included in iMovie. So it is a little bit limiting. You won't be able to do some of the fancy cuts and transitions. You won't be able to do some of the fancy text and titles and things like that. But you can get some really great free stuff, and iMovie's totally free. So again, the really nice thing about it is I learned in iMovie and probably used that for the first 1.5 or 2 years that I shot videos. And when I learned iMovie, all that data and knowledge transferred because, again, Final Cut works exactly the same way. It just has more functionality. So I had to learn some new stuff when I switched to Final Cut, but all the stuff that I learned about dragging stuff to the timeline, cutting things, pressing B to switch to like the slice button to be able to cut up footage, pressing A to swap back to the arrow to drag and drop stuff, all that stuff is the same from one software to the other. So I really, really like Final Cut. Now, if you're looking for totally free options, I mentioned iMovie. If you're not on a Mac, DaVinci Resolve is a free one. It is more complex. There is a learning curve. That's why I didn't go with it. I don't know anything about DaVinci Resolve, but I know a ton of guys that have really big YouTube channels that use DaVinci Resolve and actually say that they like it better than Adobe Premiere and they like it better than Final Cut. You just have to be dedicated. You have to go and watch a bunch of YouTube videos, and you're probably gonna spend a week or 2 just kind of like playing with it, editing things, cutting things up, learning where everything is, memorizing the layout, because it's not as intuitive as like a Final Cut or an iMovie, in my opinion. But again, it's free, and if you start with that and you use that to edit and you get to the point where you get it, it's totally free, and it has a ton of powerful tools. So if you wanna start there and you wanna put in that time up front, that's a good way to do it, and that's a free option as well. As far as other tips and things just in general about how to learn and teach yourself this stuff, I literally, like I mentioned, learned everything on YouTube. So what I would do, and I still do it to this day, there are times when I'm like, okay, wait, how do you do keyframes, right? Like, how do I keyframe something into my video? I'll go to YouTube and I will literally search keyframe, blah, blah. You know, like you can literally just, that's the beauty of YouTube. It has everything, right? So I will go to YouTube and I will search for the thing I'm trying to do. How do I fade to black? How do I add a transition? How do I add a menu? How do I add a timer? I had to do that the other day. I did a timer on a compressor video where I was airing up tires and I forgot how to do, how do I overlay a timer and manipulate it to be interesting and accurate and count the time of these tires that are airing up, right? I just went and I watched a video about it. And then again, it's about consistency and practice, right? So I put out a couple videos every week. I just am constantly in Final Cut, but now it's all second nature to me, right? It could take me to shoot a YouTube video like this. It's probably taking me about 20-25 minutes to shoot it. It'll probably take me about 30 to 45 minutes to fully edit it, get it uploaded. So I'm about an hour and a half into this episode for this week. I've gotten way more streamlined. It used to take me 4 hours, 5 hours to shoot, edit, come up with ideas, do all that stuff. I was way more awkward on camera, right? So that is my biggest thing that I can tell you is consistency is key for almost everything you do. If you can be consistent with editing, you're gonna learn it and it's gonna become second nature for you. If you're consistent with your content, people enjoy that. They like knowing that I'm gonna put out 2 videos every week, one on a Sunday and generally one on a Tuesday, maybe an extra one on a Thursday if I've got extra content that I need to get out. So that consistency helps there. The consistency helps with the algorithm. YouTube and all these different things, they like consistent posting. posting, because then they know that your audience knows that you're going to post something on that day, right? The consistency of shooting and coming up with content helps me get better at creating content. Again, be consistent. If you're going to do it, don't just do it for like a month and then quit, because that's too quick. It's taken me years to get to the point where I'm at. And some people will have faster success, right? Like, look at my buddy Will from Venture to Rome. He's only been doing it for a couple of years and he has almost 50,000 subscribers. I've got 20 some now. I don't make the epic content. I'm not as talented as him, right? But I try and be educational. I try and be helpful. That's kind of my focus. And I hope that you guys enjoy that. There's so many ways to do this. If you want to do YouTube, there are so many ways for people to enjoy your content. There's so many people out there that enjoy my stuff, and there are people that enjoy Will's stuff and enjoy both. There's some of Will's people that might not like mine. There's some of my people that might not like Will's, right? But there's room for all of us, and if you enjoy it, you should do it and be consistent. All right, guys, so as you saw, there are just a ton of different ways. And again, I'm not necessarily advocating, I've been doing this for years, so I have invested some money into some gear. Some of it's pretty pricey. There are a lot of budget options. There are a lot of really cheap microphones. As you saw, I have really cheap microphones, but they're way better than the stock internal microphone. So, I hope that was helpful for you, just for the fun of photography or the fun of videography or the fun of capturing your trips. And if you're doing the YouTube thing too, I hope that was helpful as well. And this is for the future, I've talked about this quite a bit, and I've actually put in a fair amount of work, but I just haven't gotten around to really posting it. But I am working on a how to grow in overlanding YouTubing, right? Like, how do you make a channel? How do you optimize your channel? How do you post videos? How do you do tags, right? Like, there's a ton of stuff that goes into YouTube that I've learned. It's taken me hours and hours, tens, hundreds of hours of researching and kind of teaching myself how to do this stuff, combined with my marketing experience that I have through like my work jobs and stuff like that. So I am working on like a class for that. If you're interested in that, send me an email at allthingsoverlanding@gmail.com. I'm happy to kind of share some of the early stuff with you, but I am thinking about putting like an online class up, and I'm just curious how many of you are interested in that. So love to hear from you, or comment down below and just let me know. You don't have to send me an email if you don't want to, but I'm just curious to hear from you guys what you think about that. So in the description down below will be all of the links to my other social channels. So if you don't follow on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, wherever, but you want to, there will be links down there. Also below this video will be if you're watching on YouTube, a join button. That's just kind of a passive way to support the channel. It gives you some early access to the podcast, all the videos that I do, and it's just a nice passive way to say, hey, thanks for the videos. If you're listening on the podcast, leave a 5-star review, add it to your favorites. If you're watching on YouTube, click the subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when new videos drop. Do a couple every week, like I mentioned, so would love to have you as a subscriber wherever you want to be. Also in the description down below will be a link to my Patreon group, which is kind of a more active way to support the channel. We have a 24/7 Discord where we all kind of chat with each other. We've got a once-a-month Zoom call, and we're doing 1 or 2 trips a year to try and meet up in person, which has been a ton of fun so far. Also below this video is a link to my website where I've got ATO merch. I've got funny overlanding camping themed patches and stickers, things like don't burn your wiener and it's a hot dog, or F people, let's go overlanding. So there's a ton of stuff down there for you if you're looking for stickers to outfit your rig, that kind of thing. And then last but not least, there is a link to the Facebook group called Newbie Overlanders that I run, which has about 20,000 members in it right now. It's growing every day, but it's different from the big groups. We don't allow any bullying or anything like that. We're trying to be positive and support each other. We want to help new folks that are trying to get into overlanding. And it's not just about driving the biggest, baddest rig or being poor or rich or anything like that. It's just loving overlanding and helping each other enjoy it and pick out the best gear for our needs. So if that sounds good, click through that down below. But again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.